We'll get there soon. So today on TechNow, we're going to talk about the scary internet. Basically, your theory is that we've become incredibly dependent on the internet, like a lot of technologies, and yet it's really a scary place. There's lots of stuff going on that we hear about every day, and we'll talk about some of that stuff and so forth. First, I have to start, though. We were starting to talk before the show about whether I used a Mac or a PC, and yes. I'm sure that has huge ramifications for how exposed I am to all the security stuff that's going on. Yeah. But you made a very interesting comment that's maybe different from the security, which is that Apple's business model sucks. Very unusual take. Most people think Apple has a great business model. So what's that about?
Okay, Apple's business model is about a closed circuit, i.e. a profitable business being small, and you can be profitable business being 90% share, a market share owner.
So let's talk about a little bit about the security. And again, I want to step back and go to the big picture. But first, reassure me, I read every day that, in fact, having a Mac, I'm much safer than having a PC, which is just attacked by viruses constantly. Is that the case, or is it?
Not necessarily. Yes, there are more viruses for PCs, but there are less security for Mac.
So?
Less security software for Mac.
Okay, which I assume Komodo is going to take care of one of these days.
Hopefully,
somebody else. Yeah. All right, so let's step back. So you have this chart that I hope we can put up on the screen that basically looks at the adoption curve of technology, where new technology comes along, whether it's cars, and obviously we've used the metaphor of crash test dummies for this show, and certainly so. New technology comes along, human beings get more and more dependent on it as it becomes adopted, and yet at the same time it is actually incredibly dangerous. And the whole idea of cars without seatbelts, we didn't realize you're going to build a highway system and suddenly tens of thousands of people are going to get killed every year from the accidents. Suddenly we figure it out here and we actually make the technology a lot safer. So talk a little bit about the internet, because I think everybody hears all day long about how all this awful stuff's going on. Hopefully it hasn't touched you and so forth. But is it really something that people should be worried about?
It is, if you're depending on it, and we are depending on it. So let's talk about this chart first. This chart shows you your dependency. So something comes along, like technology, let that be an airport. Airports, we built dependency on it. Airport security is the last thing in our mind until something happens, which I call an event trigger point. And if you look at this, we are happily using airports. Come 9/11, security is there. We just waltz in without taking our shoes off. And come 9/11, we say, oh dear, we're very insecure, and then we start taking our trousers off, to get into airplanes. And then we start introducing security. So what's happening right now is internet and computers are kind of technologies that human race has never, ever had the dependency on. Let me explain it another way. Internet and security, we're depending on internet and security at a rate that has never been seen before. There has been no other technology that we relied upon so heavily as internet and computing. So this dependency is exponential, and we're growing in dependency. What is the security? Non-existent, almost non-existent. And what's going to happen is there is going to be an event trigger that will cause us to say, oh dear. And I'm just trying to help everyone to lower that vulnerability.
So talk about what that vulnerability is. I mean, you have ideas that here we all are banking online, people can get into the accounts, steal everything, they can pretend to be us, they can fool us into thinking they're other people. Talk about some of the actual things that are happening all the time.
What do you depend on internet? Do you do your online banking?
Everything.
So that means everything that you have is vulnerable, and everything that everyone has is vulnerable. We rely upon our X-ray machines in hospitals. Can be subject to malware, and it was. There has been incidences where a hospital in Sweden and hospital in the UK got hit by malware, and it literally crippled them. They had to divert patients to another hospital. So now you are seeing the movement of malware from affecting your files in your computer to affecting your real life.
And so was this because they were connected to the internet? Somebody was able to get in?
Yes, and what's going to happen is everything is going to be connected to the internet. It's the way that the whole society brings itself together. Human race is a social animal. We like to be connected. And internet is the biggest connecting infrastructure that connects us all together.
So this is like real life Battlestar Galactica. I don't know whether you watch Battlestar
I
Galactica.
don't, but yeah.
Anyway, so the famous captain,
Right.
Bill Adama, the Cylons have basically infiltrated the whole network, and they take over all the ships and destroy them because they infiltrate the network. He doesn't have any of his computers connected to the network. So basically what you're describing is that, effectively, if a machine is connected to the network.
And if you do the mathematical formula, I mean, consider this. In 1980s, how many % of your time you were spending being connected to another person using technology? And then how many % of your time you're spending being connected to another person using technology today? Extrapolate that number, you will see that everyone's going to be connected to everyone all the time. And what is that connection between people? Is what we call as internet and computers. It allows us to connect together. It's in our DNA. We want to be connected together.
So we'll take some questions in a minute. I'm sure people are dying to ask you questions. But so talk about some more real-life examples, because again, I think the experience that most people have, certainly I have it, is that you read these stories, but often they take place a long way away, or somebody steals 100,000 credit card numbers, but maybe it's not your credit card number, and so people don't really pay attention to it. I mean, should we be in a state of fear every time we go online that something's going to happen, or are the odds still pretty remote? So it's like a potential car accident, which would be horrendous, but we pray it doesn't happen.
Okay. Well, one of the latest incidents was a road sign being changed by hackers. They've hacked into a control room that controls the road signs, and that was changed. So, now in one of the providers. So actually now I have to cut my credit card off, cut it all off and throw it away. Why? Because one provider did not protect their infrastructure, my details, properly.
But I mean, not to play devil's advocate, but so you have to cut your credit card off. Big deal. The credit card company takes care of the losses. Is that something that I should be worried about?
Well, do you think credit card company will take the losses, or are you going to have to pay for it?
Oh, I think they'll take the losses. Most of them do.
And where does that go? It comes back to us. Those companies make money. They're not there as a charity, right?
Right. So there's nothing I can do to make sure that my credit card company is using the latest systems and is monitoring it carefully. So again,
that's a very good point. That is exactly why we need standards. Now, you buy a lock for your door, right? And it has a standard. When you buy a desktop security product, what is the standard they have to comply with? Non-existent. So today, there is no standards for the industry. And that's something that I want to change.
Great. I think we've got people knocking the door down to ask some questions. So hopefully, Sean from Toronto, I think.
Yes, hello. My question is, I don't understand how we are supposed to conduct business online without being able to verify anything very well. Is this a realistic solution to verifying identities or website content? It seems impossible to me.
No. Well, very good question.